Hello and welcome to another episode of Sonic Touch, episode 33 if you're interested. I'm Nick Batt, editor of SonicState.com.
And I'm Gaz Williams, a bass player and producer.
One thing I would like to say before we get anything started, we've got a competition, we've got stuff to give away this week, and if you want to know what it is, you're going to have to stay tuned. I think that's what they call a tease, right?
You are a tease, Nick.
I try to be. So what are we going to do this week, Gaz?
Well, we thought it'd be good to explore connecting lots of things to a single iPad and to try and see whether that is going to work.
Multiple MIDI devices,
audio interface, various things, and just to see what kind of issues you might encounter with a setup like this.
Because you might be interested in using an iPad as maybe the hub of something, have a couple of keyboards, a drum controller connected, and you know, maybe you could do a gig with it. I don't know, just saying it's probably not likely, but let's see.
Yeah, so our setup then, as it stands, and we're going to build on it as we go, is pretty standard.
Yeah, I got that from PC World. It's about 15 quid.
USB powered hub. And well, straight away, here's our first issue, isn't it?
Well, a powered hub you might consider might power an iPad.
Yep.
Oh no.
No.
It's a bit of a drag. Actually, if somebody could just make a USB hub that powered an iPad, I mean, it's not like the iPad is a niche product or anything. Could we have that? But to be fair, I think perhaps the issue is with the camera connection. Because that's how we've got that. I don't know if you can take power over.
I suspect that's the problem there. So that means then that you're always going to have to be keeping your iPad charged. Yeah. But saying that, you do get long battery life. So if you charge overnight, it's going to pretty much last a session.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing that I would say about this is this is the latest iPad. So if you're thinking later, how did they get all that to work? It's because we're running the latest iPad. So Gaz is fortunate enough to actually own one of those. Mine is I bought at the wrong time.
Well, okay, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. So as I mentioned, so we're starting with this hub. And the first thing that we've got plugged in is the Allen & Heath Z10 mixing desk, which is a great mixer to go along with an iPad. And we're going to look at this in more detail in another episode. So,
and this is actually cool because it's class compliant.
Yeah.
And it just works as an audio interface, but it's also got a mixing desk. Because I mean, obviously there are docks and those kind of things, but this is actually more of a fully featured, and you've got lots of different routing opportunities. But we'll talk about that later, perhaps in another episode.
Yeah, so I guess what we'll do next then, now, so we've got our audio interface, is plug a Midi keyboard in.
Right, and fortunately, we've got a few from CME. This is the X-Keys, which you've probably seen us review before. There's been some new stuff since then. There's now an app to configure it, and also these new colours. So we've got a champagne one here, which we'll plug in first, but there's also a black one, which is very fetching. But let's start with this guy, right?
Okay, so we'll plug it in, and
let's launch the editor.
Let's launch the editor. Okay, great. Okay, so X-Key.
Yeah. So start here. It's picked it up. We go into the menu. This is actually very cool because it means we can configure the entire thing. So we can set velocity curves. I actually prefer. Was it that one? Is it that one I prefer? Yeah, that gives you a bit more sort of. You don't have to hit. You had to hit it quite hard to get full velocity, so you can set all the different curves. You can even draw one in. So if I wanted one that was kind of that shape, I could have one.
What do you
think that would look like? That would sound terrible. So anyway, this is the one I want. I'm going to come back here, and then we've got assignments. This is actually pretty neat because we can key by key. We can make a separate MIDI channel. We can set whether it's a note value or a control change, and that allows us basically to set these to be individual controllers as well. So there's an awful lot of things we can do. Another couple of things we've got are, we can have aftertouch on, we can have poly or channel pressure. I don't know if you remember the thing about the CME X-Key is it actually does transmit poly aftertouch, which is sort of a bit mind-blowing for, what was it, 99 bucks, I think. Anyway, back to the editor. We can set a MIDI channel per key. We can also set a velocity curve per key. I mean, it's quite granular, this. You can get some pretty cool stuff. What we've actually done in this one is we've got a global MIDI channel. If I just take that off a sec, and we've set this to be channel 1. We could set the whole thing to be channel 2, but we've decided to channelize each of these. So, so that's something we can do in the editor. Additionally, we've got, well, this is actually where it starts to get a bit more advanced. We can have filtering for various different pressure and a noise, so how hard you hit, whether you accidentally stroke a key, because it doesn't have full treble. And then we've got key tunings where this is where you want to get very scientific. I mean, you use one of these as well, don't you?
Yeah, and you might want to change the key pressure if you were going to use it as each one as a sort of MIDI CC controller. Then sort of you might want to play with the pressure. That would be a different. You would want a different dynamic than if you were using it as a musical note. So this is definitely an interesting thing, and like these buttons along the side here, which there's these are our like pitch bend wheels. We've got a sustain button.
An octave shift, modulation.
And modulation. Now these things are also pressure sensitive, and within here we can adjust things, you know.
Modulation, pitch speed. Can we set that? Yeah, we can set the assignments here, can't we? Because we've got each of these buttons is, that's
so these buttons can transmit, so it's a pretty kind of...
Yeah, it's quite powerful in many ways.
Yeah.
So we come back out here, and now we've set up our first one here. I will say in the other ones, we've already preset them. So this is channel 1. This is, I forget which way around it was. This is channel 2, which will go here. And then we may as well put the third one up.
Yeah, why not?
The black one goes there, and that's channel 3. So that allows us to channelize.
Yep.
There we go. So we'll plug all of these in now. And then we should be able to address them all as individual MIDI device inputs. And what are we going to use to host this big jam session kind of notion?
Well, I think Cubasis is probably as good a place as any, because it does allow you to select different MIDI inputs and to select what MIDI channels, etc., etc.
So we're starting with a blank palette.
Blank palette. So we're going to add a MIDI track, and we'll just use the stock sounds just to get things set up. And if we go into the inspector here at the side and go into routing, all MIDI ports.
We can choose which one of the inputs that we've got there.
Yeah,
right, okay.
But we noticed the X-Key.
They're all the same name.
All the same name. So
it'd be nice to be able to name them as individual devices, wouldn't it? But not yet, perhaps. But
so we'll set one there as one of the X-Keys. We'll add another thing, and I'll change it from a piano. Let's change it to like a brass sound, for instance, so we've got a different. So we can see, and then we'll do a third one, which will be drums, maybe.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
go for it.
So we'll come here and pick a drum kit. I'll do.
Okay, that'll do. Right. So now, but we need to set all of them into record enable, right?
Yeah. So now let's...
So have we set the ports up for it? No, we haven't.
Nope,
we need to set...
So this one now we'll do as the second of the X-Keys, and this one we'll do as the third of the X-Keys. So, all things going to plan.
Drums?
Yep.
Oh. Wow, now, so basically we've got each different instrument is addressed on a different port. Now, obviously we've got 3 CME X-Keys here. I'm wondering, if you look over there in the corner, we've got the M-Audio Trigger Finger Pro. I reckon we should put the drums on that.
Ah, interesting. So we're going to plug that in.
So I've got that here, so let's just see.
Yep.
Yep, that's going.
Yep.
So I go to my, I can select Trigger Finger Pro MIDI. And what's happening, if I come over and start hitting, my God.
Ha-ha!
I can trigger the pads from here.
Okay, so I'll put another sound then onto this X-Key, but this time Cubasis does support inter-app audio. So, so if I was to create a new track here, and then rather unintuitively, I have to go to instruments, then scroll up, and hiding right at the top of this list, we find that
inter-app stuff.
Yeah, it's not that obvious, is it? Because if you haven't scrolled through everything, they're hiding up there. So inter-app audio then lets us bring in something. What's your fancy? Should we have some?
How about Alchemy?
Alchemy, one of my favourites.
So now that's instantiating.
That's right. So if I was to tap on it now, is come over to alchemy. So just make sure that it's mapped to the right X key.
Let me see, X key, which X key we should be, let's just try and make sure we got the right one. X key 1.
It would be helpful if we could name the X keys, wouldn't it? Okay, so there you see, this is one of the issues, and we can't deny this issue. It's not to do with the X key, it's not to do with the trigger finger, it's to do with something...
We don't know what it is. The devices seem to not always show up. They'll show up in the list, but they don't show up in terms of actually doing anything.
Yeah.
So let's try unplugging and plugging again and see if that... Right, so now you see this is playing both. So now we have to come back again and make sure that... this is a little bit... And again, this is not... right, we've only got 2 there now, so we probably need to unplug and plug all of the X keys to make sure that they all show up in the list again. And as we said, this isn't the fault of the particular MIDI device, it seems to be a...
It's just... I'm sure that people who are plugging... I think this is going to be something that's going to happen to anybody playing.
It's not exactly hot swap, is it?
No. So this is an interesting investigation into this this anomaly, really. Okay, so all 3 X keys are showing up here now.
Right. So we got it. So this is also. I probably need to check again because that's my first one, acoustic piano.
That's right.
Probably should just there. Yeah. So it seems to force a rechannelization. That's a lovely sound.
Yeah.
So perhaps what we should do we'll take a short break in the technical side and say one thing that we will say, we actually have 2 of these X keys to give away. That's right, wherever you are in the world, you can win one of these X keys. We've got 2 X keys. All you got to do to enter, it's really, really simple, is leave a comment below this has to be on YouTube only, and subscribe. So there'll be a subscribe button floating around. You must subscribe and you must leave a comment. And then if you win, you'll win one of these X keys and we'll send it to where you are in the world. So do that. Right. I think what we need to do is make the sounds a bit more groovy and kind of come up with a sort of something a bit more happening. And maybe what we can do is use the Trigger Finger Pro sequencer to sequence the drums.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
And then clock it all off Cubase. So first thing we want to do here is make sure that Cubase is transmitting clock, right?
Yeah. So
you do that and I'll go over here and make sure that this is in internal sync. In external sync, which it is now.
In the setup page in Cubase's, under the MIDI segment, synchronize, send MIDI clock. Okay, so that's now sending MIDI clock. So if I was to press play on here.
That's not the sequence I would have chosen, but let me see if we can make something a bit more
with a little less whistle.
Yeah, less cowbell. So what we'll do I'll program one quickly on the fly.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens if you press play now? What's the tempo we've got? We transmitting clock?
Yep, 120. That classic BPM.
Okay, so we got something there. And you've got that sorted out there. So the other thing we were going to do, which would be a bit of fun, we've also got another MIDI device that we want to plug in because we've also got a Roland System 1 here. So to do that, we were going to use a MIDI cable kind of USB device, right?
It's an EMU X MIDI.
I'll plug this in here.
And again, this is just like a class compliant MIDI interface. So plug that in. Now that should give us another MIDI channel. And what are we going to send clock to the?
Yes, let's send clock to it so that the arpeggiator can work.
So if I was to play.
Yeah.
Yep.
The clock is flashing.
You can see the clock flashing.
So now, basically, how many devices have we got plugged in?
We're up to
6.
Yeah, 6 devices. So shall we plug a 7th in?
We could plug a 7th in.
What have I got hiding under here?
OP1.
Oh, my little...
You can't resist it.
I can't. Wherever I go, it goes with me. So that's going to go into our final 7th slot now.
So I guess this is the thing about using something like the Allen and Heath. It allows us to set up multiple audio sources into the system as well.
Yes.
So, oh no, so that's working as a MIDI controller, so that's obviously working.
So that's sending MIDI, that's like...
And that's playing multiple inputs, because again, we've plugged another thing in that's upset the...
Yeah, just by plugging stuff in, it
starts to get complicated.
Yeah.
And things don't set, you know, if you're used to working in DAW, you just go, yeah, I need something, you plug it in, it works. It doesn't seem to address the devices in the same way. I don't know whether it reorders, like I say, the devices in the lists available, but it definitely is not happy working that way. So from a kind of repeatable point of view, or if you're in a live situation, you had to plug something in.
Well, for instance, here we can see that the piano
now is getting...
but did I tell it to change?
No, so if we go to the close-up here, I can click that and we can get... Right, we'll just go back to our X-Key 2, wasn't it? Which is not that one. So yeah, everything's gone out. So we have to now reassign all of this. So we will do that. So don't worry.
Yes.
We did save something earlier, didn't we? That we plugged in. If we recalled that, do you think it might possibly come back?
Worth a shot. Why don't we try it? So we'll go media. We're going to go into projects, and we did this thing called Sonic MIDI demo. Now the interesting thing is when you load these things in. They should instantiate the plugins. So this was using Zeta.
Right.
Here.
So it recalled and it should have come back with its preset that we had selected.
Yeah. And we were using a couple of sounds from, well, a sound from Alchemy and some sounds from Cubasis. Now let's have a look at how the routing is. No. So it has rerouted.
It's rerouted everything.
Yeah, so it's not a recallable thing. It's going to kind of, maybe it's a bit of a lottery. Okay,
so we'll assign them up, and what we're going to do is attempt to play out in one of our infamous attempting to play out sections.
Yeah.
I'm going to move over to here to play the IRA and the black X-Keys, and Gaz will be dealing with these two, and then we should have something to play. But do remember, there is a prize. You can win one of these X-Keys that CME have very kindly given us. They're worth about $99 each, so it's not an inconsiderable prize. All you have to do, once again, leave a comment below and make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. It all has to be done via YouTube because that's the way we can select a winner most easily. And good luck in that. For the meantime, we'll be back in a second. So we're here, we've got it all set up. It was not the joyous experience we'd hoped. We have managed to get all of the keyboards and devices routed to the right tracks. Two issues here. One is obviously when you plug or unplug some USB device into the hub, everything gets reordered and it loses its connectivity and it's all very unpredictable. The other thing is, we'd saved a kind of setup in Cubasis, which had like 4 tracks. One was routing drums from the M-Audio, all of those things, and we had a couple of Interact Audio synthesizers. When we reloaded it, it didn't come back as we thought. Actually, what happened was the patch in Zeta wasn't the same.
Wasn't the same.
You know, so it's not going to be something, if I wouldn't want to gig this. In fact, I'm quite nervous about what we're going to do now. But that doesn't matter. The fact is that we can use all these devices. We've figured out there is a way to do it. It's just perhaps a little bit clunky. But having said that, we still are able to use 3 of these CME keyboards, which remember you can win. We've got 2 X-Keys, worth $99 each. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. You have to do this on YouTube. It's the only way we can pick a winner. But aside from that, we're kind of ready to rock, aren't we?
Let's go!
3, 2, 1.